Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the absolute most chilling and honestly just completely perplexing missing persons cases in modern German history. We're talking about 15-year-old Rebecca Reusch. Back in early 2019, she was this cheerful teenager living right in the heart of the German capital. She had a vibrant life, over 30,000 followers across her social media, she loved making new friends, and she was a massive, massive fan of the K-pop band BTS. But in February of that year, she vanished, literally without a single trace.
Okay, let's dive into this, because what makes this case so deeply unusual isn't just the sheer fact that a teenager could disappear into thin air in a bustling city. It's the central, incredibly polarizing paradox of the investigation itself. On one side, you have a police force dead set on a prime suspect, and on the other, a grieving family that staunchly, relentlessly defends him.
Part 1. The morning she vanished. Let's take a look at February 18th, 2019.
To really understand how this puzzle pieces together, we have to remember that Rebecca had spent the weekend sleeping on the couch at her 27-year-old sister Jessica's home in the Brits district of Berlin. This timeline we're looking at represents a remarkably narrow window of time, just a couple of hours. So at 5:45 a.m., Jessica's husband, 28-year-old Florian, returns from an office party. At 7 a.m., Jessica leaves for work with her young daughter. By 7:15 a.m., Rebecca's mother, Brigitte, is already trying to call her just to make sure she gets up for school, but it goes straight to voicemail. Somewhere between 7 and 7:46 a.m., Rebecca leaves her last known digital footprint, a Snapchat photo to a friend. That photo, which was viewed at 8:15 a.m., showed Rebecca in a hallway, wearing a BTS Rap Monster sweatshirt. Finally, at 8:25 a.m., Brigitte manages to wake Florian up over the phone. He checks the living room and tells her that Rebecca is no longer in the house.
When police eventually arrived, they took careful inventory of exactly what was missing along with Rebecca. She had her Vans backpack, a pink fleece jacket, that BTS sweatshirt from the photo, her phone, a digital camera, and a purple blanket. Now initially, this volume of items made the police think, well, she was simply a runaway. But her family immediately pushed back on that. They insisted no way she was in the habit of taking her backpack and her camera absolutely everywhere she went.
Part 2. The search begins. A desperate family.
The alarm was truly sounded when 9:40 a.m. rolled around and Rebecca totally failed to show up for school. That prompted her terrified parents to go straight to the authorities. But the reaction they got was a stark contrast. On one hand, you have the family's absolute urgency. They are immediately canvassing schools, scouring local shopping malls, contacting literally everyone she knew. But on the other hand, standard police procedure dictated a mandated 24-hour wait before launching an official missing person search. And adding to the frustration, when the authorities finally did issue flyers, they ignored the family's recent photos. Instead, they used an older Instagram picture of Rebecca with heavy makeup and filters, which the family felt made her look artificially older and much harder to identify on the street.
Part 3. The prime suspect. Florian arrested.
Fast forward to February 28th, and the dynamics of the case shifted dramatically. A specialized serious crime squad took over the investigation and actually arrested Rebecca's brother-in-law, Florian. Now, he was released shortly after, but on March 4th, he was arrested a second time. And here is the impartial breakdown of exactly why that happened. Florian's initial alibi was that he arrived home exhausted and a bit drunk at 5:45 a.m., changed, and went straight to sleep. However, the digital evidence painted a completely different picture. Police examined his smartphone data and discovered he had actually been awake for hours, using the internet, texting friends, and browsing adult websites. Because his testimony was entirely inconsistent with that digital footprint, police theorized that he might have attacked Rebecca after his wife Jessica left the house.
Now, what's really fascinating about this part of the investigation is the concept of a visual void. Think about it. In a modern, heavily surveilled city like Berlin, you would fully expect cameras on houses or businesses to pick up a pedestrian. Yet 0 CCTV cameras captured Rebecca leaving the house, none caught her walking to the bus stop. This led the police to a pretty chilling deduction. They believed the complete lack of footage meant Rebecca likely never left that house on foot.
Part 4. The highway to Poland. The A12 Federal Road. Let's move on and see how this builds, because the physical evidence quickly shifted the investigation entirely away from the house in Brits and onto the A12 Federal Road. For context, this is a major highway that serves as a 2-hour direct connection between Berlin and the Polish border. automated highway cameras out there captured something highly suspicious. Notice the dates and times here on the slide. On the very morning Rebecca vanished, February 18th, at 10:40 a.m., Jessica and Florian's cherry red Renault Twingo was recorded heading towards Poland. The next night, February 19th, at 10:40 p.m., the exact same car was captured making the exact same journey. Crucially, authorities confirmed that Jessica was definitively at work during that first trip, which means only Florian could have been behind the wheel. And this brilliantly illustrates the divide at the absolute heart of this mystery. The police conducted forensic examinations of that Renault Twingo and found Rebecca's hair plus fibers from her purple blanket right in the trunk. This led them to firmly believe Florian transported her body to dispose of it in the woods. However, the family staunchly argued against this. They pointed out that Rebecca frequently rode in that car, making hair and fibers completely normal. Furthermore, they openly admitted and validated Florian's alibi for the driving itself. They said he was a known drug dealer, simply making routine delivery runs to an acquaintance in Poland.
Part 5. Alternative Theories. Exploring Other Angles.
So despite the police's absolute conviction, Florian was released again on March 22nd due to a lack of concrete evidence definitively linking him to a crime. With the prime suspect out of custody, we really have to ask ourselves, if the cameras prove she never left the house on foot, and if we entertain the possibility that Florian didn't take her, who was Rebecca intending to meet that morning? Did someone else pick her up in a car while Florian was distracted, or maybe asleep?
So the crucial point is that authorities really did turn over every single stone looking for this mysterious other person. They tracked down Max, a 15-year-old online friend who very suspiciously deleted his social media right after she vanished, but police and investigative podcasters proved he hadn't actually spoken to Rebecca in over 6 months. Then they looked into Lucas, a classmate who had a huge fight with her just days prior, but he had a solid alibi, surrounded by people at school. They even chased down theories that she fled all the way to South Korea for her love of BTS, or, tragically, that she fell victim to human traffickers. But every single one of these leads, including unconfirmed sightings of her at bus stops, turned out to be completely baseless dead ends.
Part 6. An Enduring Mystery. The trail goes cold.
Which brings us right up to the present day. Despite massive media coverage that missing persons experts say rivals even the infamous Madeleine McCann case, the trail for Rebecca reusch remains entirely, just frustratingly cold. And to give you an idea of how exhausted the modern investigative efforts are, in 2020, prosecutors subpoenaed Google servers in Dublin, Ireland, hoping the mobile phone data of Rebecca and Florian would crack the case. It yielded nothing. As recently as April 2023, police returned to the sisters' house to conduct acoustic suffocation tests and search for new items. Again, even with all our advanced forensic technology, authorities walked away with zero new evidence.
Behind all the timelines, the data points, and the digital forensics, we really have to remember the human element here. Bernd and Brigitte Reusch stated, "We firmly believe our daughter is still alive somewhere, and we hold on to the hope of finding her one day." It's a heartbreaking sentiment, isn't it? It grounds this entire true crime puzzle in the tragic reality of a family still desperately waiting for their youngest daughter to come home.
And so, I'm turning the investigation over to you, the viewer. We've looked at the timeline, that eerie visual void, the highway logs, and all the competing theories. When you weigh the police's circumstantial evidence against the family's unwavering defense of Florian, what do you believe really happened in that house on the morning of February 18th? Keep exploring, keep questioning, and thank you so much for joining me on this explainer.